Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that.
Hey, what's up, YouTubers? Mr. Hart here, and we are going to go over angle relationships. So anytime that you have two parallel lines, at least two, and a transversal line, which a transversal line is just a line that cuts through or intersects any two parallel lines. Anytime we have that, we have relationships with all of the angles. So we're just going to kind of work through our main six here and see if we can figure out which one's which. So our first one is corresponding. Corresponding means that the two angles are in the same location in relation to the transversal and each parallel side, each parallel line. So number 3 here, this is, and I'll write it, corresponding, because both of the angles are below the parallel lines and to the right of the transversal. Our next relationship is vertical. Vertical angles are angles that are across from each other. So I'm looking at my other 5 here. I notice number 6, that these two angles are directly across from each other. So those are my vertical angles. Next, we have adjacent. Adjacent means in math the same thing that it means in the English language, that they're right next to each other. So we want to try to figure out two angles here that are next to each other and they share a common side. I like to say, think about a subdivision with people's backyards. If they're two backyards right next to each other, they share the fence line, those backyards are adjacent to each other. So these two angles here are adjacent because they're next to each other and they share that side. Next, we have alternate interior. Again, we can probably figure this out just by breaking the word down. So alternate means different, so we're looking for angles on different sides of the transversal. And interior means that the two angles are on the inside of the parallel lines. So after looking at my angles here, I notice that both of these angles are on different sides of the transversal, but they are also both on the inside of the parallel lines. Then we have alternate exterior, which means the same thing as alternate interior, except we're on the outside of the parallel lines. So I'm looking for two angles that are on different sides of the transversal, on the outside of the parallel lines, and that is these two angles right here. So these are alternate exterior. And then last, we have same side interior, which if alternate interior means they're on different sides of the transversal on the inside, same side interior is going to be the same side of the transversal and in the inside. So this is my only one left, but we want to check to make sure we got it right. Are both of my angles on the same side of the transversal? Yes, they're both to the right, and then they are both on the inside of the parallel lines. So that is same side interior, and now you know more.
Hey, Gossam here. So what's up, Mustangs? Let's look at these triangles that we have up here. We have two triangles. We are trying to find x in both of these triangles, and we know that angle plus angle plus angle inside of a triangle equals 180. So knowing that, let's attack these problems. So first of all, we have x plus 8. So I wrote down x plus 8 plus 90 degrees. So I put 90. And then we put x minus 2. So I said plus x minus 2. And all of those three angles add up to be 180 degrees. So the next step is we combine like terms. So I took the x's and I combined them. So since we have x plus x, we have two x's. And then I took the 8, the 90, and the minus 2, and I combine those by saying 8 plus 90 minus 2 gives me 96. And then we just brought down the equals 180. The next step is to solve for x. So to get everything away from x, in this case we had plus 90, so we had to do the opposite, which is subtract 96, or plus 96, so we're going to subtract 96. So we do that to the other side. So we get 2x equals 180 minus 96 is 84. So now we're sitting at 2x equals 84. The last step is to divide both sides by 2. So we get 84 divided by 2, which is 42. So x is 42. And that's what it would be for this triangle. Now if you wanted to figure out each individual angle, all you would have to do is take the x and plug it back in, and that would give you the measurement of each one of those angles. Okay? So let's look at the next one. The next one is the same thing. We're literally taking all three angles, you're adding them together, and they equal 180. And that's what we have here. We have 3x minus 4 plus 21 plus x plus 7. And all that equals 180. The next step is to combine like terms. So I have 3x plus x, which is just 4x. And then we have negative 4 plus 21 plus 7. And all that together is 24. So then we subtract 24. And when we subtract 24, we drop down our 4x. We get 180 minus 24, which is 156. We divide both sides by 4. X is 39. And again, if we want to, we can take the 39, plug it back in, and we can get these individual angles. And if you want to really check and make sure your answer is correct, if you take all three of those angles and add them together, you should get 180. And now, you know more.
Hey guys, it's Miss Garner. Today we're going to be looking at solving for x using our angle relationships. So there's kind of two ways you can go about this. You can use the angle relationships that Mr. Hart went over. So in this case, if we look at our first problem, the two angles that they've given us are corresponding angles. So we know we're going to have to set those equal to each other. Another way you can look at it is that you have an acute angle, which is less than 90 degrees, and you also have an acute angle, which is less than 90 degrees. If you have two acute angles, you can just set them equal to each other. So I'm going to say 4x plus 5 equals x plus 11. Once you have this problem, you can use the box method to solve it, or the traditional way where we get all the x's on one side and all the numbers on the other. So I'm going to put my x's on the left and my numbers on the right. So I'm going to subtract an x from both sides so that it cancels out on the right. So this, I'm going to get 3x, and then I'm going to subtract a 5 so that it goes on my other side. So equals 6. My last step here is just to divide by 3, and I get x equals 2. If I wanted to know what these angles were, I could just plug 2 back into my problem. So if x is 2, I get 2 plus 11. So that angle is 13 degrees. And now I'm going to take 2 and I'm also going to plug it into my top problem. So in this case, I will have 4 times 2 plus 5, which is 8 plus 5, which equals 13 degrees. And we see here that both of our angles, they should be the same thing. They are both 13 degrees. Looking at our second problem here, we have same side interior angles, which means they are supplementary. They have to add up to 180 degrees. I also notice my top angle is obtuse, it's greater than 90, and my bottom angle is acute. Anytime you have different angles, so one acute, one obtuse, they're going to add up to 180. So I'm going to say 6x plus 12 plus my second angle, 4x plus 8, equals 180. Once I have this, I'm going to combine like terms on my left. So 6x plus 4x is 10x. And then I have a plus 12 and a plus 8 gives me plus 20 equals 180. In order to isolate x, I'm going to subtract 20 from both sides. So I get 10x equals 160. And then your final step is to divide both sides by 10, leaving you with x equals 16. So x is 16, that's what we were trying to find. If they ask for your angle degrees, all you would have to do is plug this 16 in for both x's to double check yourself. Those two angles added together should give you 180 degrees. And now you know more.